What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the show. Today we're talking about the best and worst fitness quotes and sayings. I put up on my stories yesterday asking what some of your favorites were, and there were a ton of responses. This was going to be like my top 5. Then I turned it into my top 10. Now we have like over 20 that I think are really good. I think sometimes there are quotes and sayings that just really stick with you. I think, listen, getting fit, strong, and healthy is not about like, attaching yourself to like a certain statement and just making that your whole identity. But I do think sometimes little sayings or quotes or whatever, they can mean something. They can stick with you. And there are some on this list that really, really stick with me. And they are something that, I think about either quite a bit or here and there. And I actually think have had some part to play in me reaching a point where I really feel like I'm living my happiest, healthiest life with a good relationship with my body and fitness and nutrition and all that stuff. And I think I think quotes sometimes can be meaningful. Again, action is what matters, but sometimes these little quotes or sayings, they stick with us and they do mean something. And a lot of you guys answered. And so, yeah, that was reflected in how many of you guys reached out to me and gave me a couple quotes. And some of them were things that I've said to you or said, in some sort of content at some point. So that was kind of funny as well. And I do want to say before we jump in, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate all the reviews that have been coming in lately. I decided one of the things I really want to do is make sure I'm putting out maybe a little bit more in the podcast sphere. Instagram has been tough. It's tough from a growing my brand perspective, let's say. It's tough from like a reach perspective. And I find that I really, really, really enjoy doing podcasts. And one of the things that would make it, that makes it worthwhile is some of those kind words that you guys have said in the reviews. And I really, really appreciate that. It takes only a second. You can go on Spotify. On Spotify, you can only leave a 5-star. You don't have to write anything. It doesn't let you write anything. On iTunes, you can do both. And again, I appreciate it. If you've done that, it means a ton to me. There have been a lot of them in the last week or two, as I've mentioned it on a couple podcasts. So thank you so, so much. So we're going to start with some of the quotes that are just terrible, just really not great. And then we'll move into some of the good ones. I'll try and get this done in 20 minutes. We'll keep it on the shorter side here. Some of the ones that were really just not great. Sweat is just fat crying. Pain is weakness leaving the body. Nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. I mean, these are terrible. The irony is that these, at some point, I bet in all of, not everyone, but at some point, these were probably ones that you connected with. These were probably things I said as a 20-year-old trainer trying to motivate, middle-aged moms with 8,000 different responsibilities to we all have the same 24 hours in a day is another one of these just awful, awful sayings. No pain, no gain. Abs are made in the kitchen. Eat clean, train dirty. Just terrible. A lot of them come from this some sort of grind culture, go hard or go home, no pain, no gain. Pain is weakness leaving the body. They're just these kind of I don't know, super cringy grind culture sort of. And it just, again, within each one of these quotes, minus some of them are just dumb, there's a sentiment that might be helpful, but they're just extreme versions of that. Other ones are, the gym is my therapy. That's kind of a tricky one, I think. I think the gym is funny. In 20 minutes, I have therapy, so this is an interesting moment. The gym is not a replacement for therapy. The gym, when people say this, what they mean is the gym is something they really enjoy, and it's something really, really good for their overall mental health. And that is totally true. I think that is absolutely true, but that is not therapy. If you need therapy, first of all, I think everybody would benefit from therapy, but if you are considering therapy, the gym is not a replacement for that. But yeah, go hard or go home. And the last one is, the best revenge is a fit body. Just crazy, extreme, super cringy, grind culture, don't stop till I'll sleep when I'm dead sort of stuff. Just absolute cringeworthy stuff. And so we'll get on to some of the best ones. And I don't know how I'm going to go through this. I might linger on some of them just to talk about them a little bit, but so many good ones here. The first one is, comparison is the thief of joy. I think we've all heard this at some point. More recently, and I put this out in my most recent newsletter, that isn't just comparing yourself to other people. It could be comparing yourself to yourself in a different time of your life. I put in my newsletter a couple pictures of me back when I was, maybe 25, 24. more muscular and leaner than I am today by a long shot. And if I compare myself, it's like people are like, just focus on yourself. Just don't compare to others. It's like, yeah, but don't compare yourself to a different time in your life where your values were different, right? Where your priorities were different, where you were spending your time in different ways. During those times where I was my most jacked and my most lean, I was probably training 6 days a week for like 90 minutes each. And the truth is, if I kept training that way, I probably would crumble and break. But it was for, 3 to 5 years when you're young and, you're made of stone, just like you're invincible. And yeah, I was the most jacked I've ever been, but I had no life whatsoever, complete narcissist. My entire identity was my physique. And so, yeah, I'm, 8-10 years later, I'm a completely different person with completely different priorities. And I might never get back to looking the way I did before. So not just comparing yourself to others, sometimes comparing yourself to yourself. The next three are a combination of things that I think I put them at the top of the list because these, to me, for me personally, are the ones I use most often. And they guide me almost invariably to making a good decision. And they are, what would 90-year-old you say, right? If that's like you feeling stressed out about going out to dinner with a friend because you don't, you're nervous about how many calories are going to be in the meal, or you're nervous about like the scale being up tomorrow, like whatever, like what would you're going on vacation, you're thinking about your nutrition. It's like, well, what would 90-year-old you say? What would you tell your best friend? What would you tell your child if he or she were in this scenario? I guarantee you one of those is going to hit home. And for me, being a new parent, that last one is starting to hit different. The thing is, like, when you think about the advice you'd give your child, the kind of advice you'd give a best friend, it's always elite advice. Like it's always very genuinely you wanting the absolute best for that person. Sometimes us giving ourselves advice, like we suck at it. We don't treat ourselves the same way we treat others, specifically a best friend, specifically your child, right? And in that same breath, it's the way that 90-year-old you would treat you, which is like, things like, keeping everything in perspective, not taking all this too seriously, making positive decisions for yourself long-term. Those are the sorts of things that, don't sweat the small stuff, working on stuff like body image, body dysmorphia, not punishing yourself with exercise. These are all things that you would always advise appropriately if you were talking to a best friend, a child. And they're all things that 90-year-old you is, would advise you. And the irony is like not irony, that's the wrong word, but when I'm working with somebody one-on-one, I feel just in a very palpable way that I take on the role of 90-year-old you. Like that's kind of my job, is to talk to you, advise you, because I'm coming to this with, I want the best for you long-term, holistically, for you to live your most fulfilling, happiest, healthiest life. That is what 90-year-old you wants for you. That's what I want for you. And sometimes when I'm interacting with a client, it's about offering up that perspective of what 90-year-old you might want for you, what you would tell your child, what you would tell your best friend. We can move on from those, but those three to me, if you're thinking about something when it comes to health and fitness, or it doesn't even need to be health and fitness, it could be anything, and you ask yourself those three questions, one of them, if not all of them, will hit home and give you the answer that you are looking for. The next is, the long way is actually the shortcut. I love this one when it comes to nutrition and dieting, because what we're talking about here is not taking shortcuts in terms of dieting, that like the people who do the keto diet, 99% of the time they lose a bunch of weight. A lot of that's water weight. And then they go back to eating carbs and they gain it back. And then they do the diet again. They lose it. They gain it back. They lose it. They gain it back. And they spent 3 years losing and gaining the same 40 pounds, 20 pounds, 10 pounds, whatever. When in reality, if they had gone much slower and gone with, hey, I want to walk a little bit more, eat a little bit more protein, work on my meal composition, get more fiber, it would have taken a lot. It would have felt like it would have taken a lot longer. You would lose weight slower. You might not lose weight for a while. It might feel like you're going the long way, but the long way is the way you only have to go once, right? If you do that, and you actually put the work in to build those foundational habits, change your lifestyle, change to some degree kind of who you are as a person, that's the shortcut, because that's the thing you only have to do once. Now, I don't want to make it seem like that's super easy, but most of the people that I've worked with are coming to me on the back end of some amount of many weight loss attempts. And then what we do is we do something that feels like it's going much slower. you might spend 2 years with me as a one-on-one client, but when we're done with that, you never need another diet in your life, something like that, right? When in reality, you spent the last 20 years dieting on and off nonstop. And then when you finally slowed down and did it the long way, it was actually the shortcut because you spent 2 years improving your nutrition and your lifestyle, but that's it, just 2 years instead of 20 years of cycling through diets. Within that same sentiment, I'm going to go to another quote here, and that's two of them. One is nothing changes if nothing changes. And the other is, how's it going to be different this time if it's not different this time? And that's another quote I find myself going to a lot with clients where, the circumstance I'm imagining is a client who really, really, really comes to me really wanting to lose weight, really excited to lose weight. And then I have them really focus on some of these foundational habits. And it feels like, they're not doing what they want to be doing. They're like, I just want to lose weight. When are we going to start losing weight? And I don't actually have clients who act that way, but there is a part of people that feel that way. Of course. You hire me, you're paying money. You're like, I want to lose weight. And then I might just very gently temper those sorts of feelings in lieu of working on habits. And there can be some of those reactions of like, oh, I really, the scale's not moving. It's been 4 weeks, it's been 5 weeks, scale's not moving. The question I ask you is you came to me because what you've done in the past hasn't worked, right? And we want it to be different this time. And so my question is, how is it going to be different this time if it's not different this time? And so us maybe going a little slower, working on those foundational habits is how it's going to ultimately be different this time. The next one is eat what you want, add what you need. I absolutely love this one. I think that sometimes, this is a really great quote for when you have a craving for something. Let's say you're like, okay, I'll give you an example. Last night, Jenna and I have this at the farmer's market, there's this local Italian dude from Jersey who, the minute we met him, I was like, you remind me of every person I've grown up with in Jersey. I knew he was from Jersey right away. He makes just homemade pasta, and it's fantastic. He makes a gnocchi that's just, it's amazing. And last night I was like, Jenna, I'm craving some gnocchi. And I was like, okay, I know that is what I want, but it's not really nutritious. There's no fiber. It's super high in calorie. I mean, it's mega high in calorie. It's super low in satiety. I could eat 2,000 calories of gnocchi in one sitting and barely get full. And so I was like, okay, I want gnocchi. That's the thing I want, but I'm going to add what I need. And what I need is a concise protein source and some sort of vegetable, some fiber source, some plant. And so I was like, okay, let's pull out one of these really lean sirloins and let's make a ton of this steamed spinach here. And so eat what you want, add what you need is a really great way to honor your cravings around what you want, but also build balanced meals. I mean, eat what you want, add what you need is sticks with me almost daily. Sometimes I'm like, hey, I want a peanut butter and jelly. I know a Jordan Lips peanut butter and jelly is going to be 500 calories. It's going to be 200 calories of peanut butter, 200 calories of bread, 100 calories of jelly. I know that it's okay, I'm going to have, this tub of Greek yogurt because what with some berries, because I know what I'm missing is that protein and that, fiber or just more nutritious side of the meal. Really, really good one. The next two are next three of them are kind of a package deal here. The first is your leanest body is not your happiest life. And that's actually, that's just almost certainly the case. If you think of the leanest you've ever been, chances are it wasn't also the best your life has ever been. I'm 195 pounds right now. In the last decade, I've been 175 pounds. I've been 20 pounds up and 20 pounds down from where I am right now. I've been 175, peeled, ripped to shreds, just shredded. And I've been 215, peak bulk. And that's given me some perspective on what life is like at those different body weights. And I'll tell you right now, my life sucked at 175. And it's not a pity party. You don't have to, a lot of this was voluntary, so I'm not looking for any sympathy in this regard, but life was not my best at 175. I have pictures of that. And I remember this time, I remember being 175 because I bought a whole bunch of, I've talked about this before, I bought a whole bunch of pants back when I was 175, 30-inch waist, and I was super pumped, but my life sucked. I had no energy, no libido. I barely ever ate out. I never cooked with oil. I never made my food taste good. I barely had any fat. And so, yeah, my leanest body was not my happiest life. The next one is your life's probably better a few pounds up with a few hundred extra calories. This one is huge for people who have recently lost weight. A lot of people, when they lose weight, they are trying to hold on to every single ounce of weight loss, but they've pushed themselves maybe to a level of leanness that requires a calorie amount that they don't really enjoy eating. They don't feel good eating. A lot of, I was just talking to a client this morning. She's 130 pounds, but she's, hungry all the time. And we had this discussion of like, if you were okay gaining a little bit of weight, you might gain a few pounds, but you could eat maybe 200 extra calories per day. And that might actually be a happier balance. You might enjoy your life better a few pounds up with an extra 100 or 200 calories per day. And that is something people usually solve for the problem of, I want to look as good as possible. It's like, yeah, but trying to do that might actually take you away from your happiest life. And so you might say a happier medium is, okay, maybe I have a little bit more body fat. I'm a few pounds up from where I want it to be, but that affords me the extra calories, that affords me those lifestyle choices and flexibility that really allows me to live the life I want to live. And the next one is, I do have a six-pack. It's just hiding underneath ice cream night with my kids. And this is, people don't like this one because people are like, I have a six-pack and I can do that. It's like, shut up. Like, just listen to the quote, dude. Like, listen to what it means. It's not literal. These are quotes. These are sayings. It's not literal. So this quote is obviously saying, hey, like, I'm prioritizing some of the things that really make me happy in my life that I don't want to give up, even if it means being slightly heavier than what would be my ultimate leanest, my favorite single photo of myself. It's like, I do have a six-pack. It's just hiding underneath ice cream night with my kids, date night with my husband, that wedding weekend or whatever. Like, it's just, I'm not prioritizing having a six-pack if it means giving up a lot of the things I love in my life. The next one is what doesn't challenge, doesn't change you. That one almost went in the cringe category, but I think that just like I think it's not all, that doesn't sound too grind culture for me. I think that is one that is like, what I like saying is that is, the version of this that I like, which is not as concise and nice, is talking about the things that you find scary are where the growth is. And so if you're somebody who's really afraid of stopping tracking, that's probably the thing we should work on. If you're deathly afraid of taking a rest day, that's probably the thing we should work on. So yeah, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. The next one is progression doesn't cause, this is JL original. Progression doesn't cause muscle growth. Trying hard in your sets does, or working hard does. However, it is the pursuit of progression that ensures you keep doing that. Listen again, progression. So progressing in your training is not what causes muscle growth, meaning you don't need to progress from last week to have built muscle. What you need to do is take your sets close to failure. However, it is the pursuit of progression. It is you trying to do a little bit more each week that ensures you keep working hard. And so if you keep working hard, you keep trying to progress in your workouts, you will build muscle. You don't have to progress from last week to have built muscle, but you have to keep trying to progress so that ultimately over many months that you will. Next, I'm going to go a little quicker because I'm going to be late for this appointment here. But, people say things like you can't outwork a bad diet. How about you can't out-diet your sedentary lifestyle? I see more people that are trying to go mega low in calories with 5,000 steps per day. We're not even trying to lose weight until getting at least 8,000 steps per day. We see a little bit of an appetite suppressant effect when people get above 8,000 steps per day. And the calories you'd have to go to lose weight on less than 8,000 steps per day is just so freaking low. Next is don't round down to zero. It's that something is better than nothing mentality, which is huge. I have so much content and I have so much time for discussions around when life gets hard, when you're low on time. I mean, I'm all about efficiency. I'm all about, big ROI actions and, doing the least, getting the most. And a lot of times, if you just do, it's not that something is better than nothing. First of all, it is. I'm saying it's not just that something is better than nothing. It's ironically, it's that something, like the first little bit you do gets you the biggest return. Going in and doing one hard set of each exercise probably gets you 2/3 of the available muscle growth for that workout. So it's not even just that something is better than nothing. It's something is, obviously it's infinitely better than nothing, but it's just doing a little bit gets you a really high percentage of the available benefits when we're talking about working out, let's say. The next is someone else's success is not your failure. Somebody had mentioned to me that this is one that they really find is important with their children. And I can see that 100%. I can absolutely see that. And something that I see myself talking to Emerson about at some point. Next is the best diet is the one you can stick to. I think that that's pretty self-explanatory, and that is absolutely the case. I think that if we look at like the best diets, sustainable is up there with the number one most important things. I think there are some other general things. Obviously, if we're talking about just like specifics in terms of nutrition, getting enough protein, enough fiber, enough micronutrients, enough essential amount of fat. But outside of don't eat too many calories, eat a decent amount of protein, eat a decent amount of fiber, and eat mostly whole foods, there's so many ways to enjoy your nutrition. There's so many different ways to, there's so many different dietary patterns that can fit under that mold. Next is the juice worth the squeeze? I mean, I talk about this all the time with my clients. A lot of what I do is actually help pose this question to people. A lot of people come and they have goals of doing X, Y, Z. And, we work on this idea of how much do I want to give up for X goal? What does X cost? And do I want to pay that, right? Is the juice worth the squeeze? The next is add, don't subtract. And the reason what this one really is referring to is when people are trying to get healthier, they're so focused on stop eating this, stop doing that, eat less of this, eat less of that. And that might be helpful, but I find actually a more fruitful endeavor is to focus on adding the good stuff. And so instead of like, I can't eat chips, I can't eat bread, I can't have ice cream, how about you double your portion of fruits and vegetables? How about you double your portion of lean proteins? How about you eat more protein, more fruits, more vegetables, more whole grains, more legumes, more fiber? I would bet on the person who's more focused on adding that stuff than the person who's hyper focused on subtracting, the stuff that they view as, less helpful, let's say. The next is, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And then I always add the from me, dog, like, because it's what's his name? What's his name from American Idol? He's like, it's a no from me, dog. Whatever. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Now, this one also has a little cringe to it sometimes, but the sentiment I kind of like, because I think it comes from there's another quote that I put right after this. It's you can have anything, just not everything all the time. You can have anything, just not everything all the time. And I think it's just a sentiment of kind of pick your battles and know that you can't just eat ice cream 3 times a day, but you can also have ice cream in your life. And so we're finding that middle ground, right? And sometimes like, it's just, you ever eat something and you're like, it wasn't worth the calories, all the time. And so I think just being like, another one on here that I think ties in well is not every occasion is a special occasion, right? You don't need to treat yourself every single time you leave the house and go out to eat. Like not every time you go out to eat needs to be a 5-course, decadent indulgence, right? Let's get through a few of these. We got 4 minutes here. Stop racing to a finish line that doesn't exist. I mean, this one applies to nutrition and dieting and health all the time because the point, there is no end result where you just arrive at a place and you're like, yep, I'm healthy, I'm happy, and that's it. It's not how that works. Like this game is forever. You are always playing this game, right? So this idea of like, oh, if I just get to this body weight, then I'll be happy. It's like, that's not how this works at all. Because then you are poised with a new problem of how do I remain happy at this body weight? How do I deal with maintaining and still maximizing the quality of my life? And so stop racing to a finish line that doesn't exist. We got 4 more. Motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going. And there's so many of these, like, don't rely on motivation, focus on discipline or whatever. Like, another one is you don't have to be extreme, just consistent. So this idea of building habits, not relying on motivation, is huge. And I think there's so many ways to make that more likely. I think just picking strategies that fit more in line with your lifestyle and your preferred way of doing things. So giving a client some autonomy to choose kind of how they go about making certain changes will keep them more consistent and will require less motivation. Listen, motivation is finite. The mental energy and effort, that goes along with like trying to keep yourself motivated is fleeting. It's finite. what we want to do is build some habits that don't cost you a lot of energy to continue to do. And there, again, a lot of ways to do that. And maybe that's something we can break apart in another podcast. The next was take care of your body. It's the only place you have to live. I think it's a Jim Rohn quote. Take care of your body. It's the only place you have to live. I do love this one because any quote that brings me back to the whole freaking point of this is to take care of my body so that I can, not just live as long as possible, but live as fruitful a life as possible is something I'm absolutely about. And the last one is exercise is a celebration of what your body can do, not a punishment for what you ate. Yeah, huge. Definitely a great one there. Don't love this idea of punishing yourself for eating stuff. Work, and I think about this a lot with cardio. Nothing about cardio should be centered around burning calories. It does burn calories, and movement is helpful for weight maintenance. But when people come to you like, I want to start running because I want to lose weight or I want to stay lean, or no. People are like, what sort of workout should I do to burn the most calories? Like, no, that's not what we're doing this for. You are doing cardio for heart health, right? A celebration of what your body can do, doing something that's good for your health and quality of life long-term, not so that you can eat this or because you ate that, all right? Maybe we'll do another one of these. There were a whole bunch of quotes just from a bunch of messages that I did not get to. But yeah, that was fun. I will see you guys in the next episode. Have a good one. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Where Optimal Meets Practical. If you liked the episode, it would mean the world to me if you posted a screenshot to your social media or left a 5-star review on iTunes. That stuff really helps. If you ever want to get in touch with me, just shoot me a DM on Instagram @JordanLipsFitness. I'm always around to chat. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.